I believe we are live. Welcome, everybody. It is a good day to be here in the shop, doing all kinds of stuff. It's a little break from some of our normal fare, kind of like last week. We're looking at some dungeon terrain and some dungeon stuff and props and things that I will be using in my upcoming Curse of STRAHD game. So for those of you who play D&D and don't want any spoilers for Curse of STRAHD, keep out. I put it in the titles there. Just because, you know, I don't want to be responsible for spoiling anybody's fun playing these games, but we are preparing for that. This is something I kind of previewed either last week or the week before. I can't quite remember. But this is a fun take on the ultimate dungeon crafting terrain, which I really enjoy. So this thing is sort of a foam insert on a homemade Lazy Susan, which I really enjoy. I actually really like the feel of it. I like the depth in the carving that I was able to get. And it looks really cool sort of set up. And actually I thought I might take just a couple seconds to sort of illustrate what I mean, because I think this is more effective for me personally, than, say, rolling out a battle mat and trying to put D&D together that way. So I've got some terrain that I've been sort of painting and trying to get into a serviceable state for games. So we have some bookshelves. Take some bookshelves. Let's say the walls are kind of like here and there, so there's a bookshelf on each of them. And, you know, tucked away in the corner is a little stack of books. So we stick a little stack of books in the corner. And let's say I'm not feeling great about this corner, so I put the little corner bookshelf there just to kind of show off that there is, in fact, a corner there. And yay, but there has to be at least one door, and it's right here. So there's a little door. There's a little door right there. And maybe there's another doorway, but no door. So we actually stick it over here on this side. Now I've sort of got my four walls here. It's pretty clear where they go. I can put stuff in there. Maybe there's a desk sort of in the corner here. A desk that somebody might be sitting at. I know I've got a little chair somewhere here. And set that up against that there. And suddenly the room feels very full, but not in a way that feels inappropriate. I can imagine a room sort of more or less being set up this way. I sure would love some tables, but we'll get there eventually. Who knows? Maybe we do a little table work tonight. Hardy har har. But then, you know, you can populate this with minis. Maybe you're a paper mini guy like me. Or maybe you even have the good fortune of having, like, some specific monster minis. Like, gosh, I know I've got one around here somewhere. Yeah, see, we got some dudes, we got some guys. And it's very easy to just build out the room like this. Sticking guys every which way. Into a room for even a very cramped fight with whatever the heck that is. And it's just that simple. And I really like this terrain for being that straightforward, frankly. And I'm really excited about it, using this on the table. And so tonight I thought I would take a little bit of time to, well, first and foremost, to sort of augment this, because there are some other things that I really want to have for this before I hit the first session of STRAHD. But more than that, I thought it could be really cool to maybe take a little time and try to tidy up some of these bookshelves and some of these other things, and just kind of zoom as far in as I can here and have some fun, frankly. So this is actually just one layer of this. I can actually take this top off, and underneath is the rest of the Lazy Susan there, which I'm really proud of. This is all made by me. I like the color, and I also like that this top here is actually dry erase. So I've got this. So I've got a marker right here. If I wanted to, let's say I wasn't happy with there not being walls, I could always draw out the walls on this fun dry erase board. And I actually really love how easy it is to work this thing. You know, I can still put doors and things on it if I want. They're pretty to scale, and you know, a bookshelf can still fit there or on the sides just for clarity's sake. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe I've got an open doorway because the door has just been burst in and it's laying on the floor there. And it's kind of just that simple. Ooh, wow, that is way overexposed. Let's turn that down. There we go. That's a little better. And it's kind of just that simple, honestly, is just being able to doodle it down and, play the game, which is kind of the point of this and why I wanted to make this particular piece of terrain before I started Strahd. It's a little different from the way I've done things in the past. I used to use a lot of tiles and sort of build out dungeons and spaces that way. But I found that the more I play, the more fun I actually wind up having with looser, more narrative play. And the grid is just a useful tool in that endeavor. So, in the interest of trying to be prepared for the game, there's two things I thought we could kind of work on tonight. I want to make sort of an altar stone that the Death House, which is sort of the first adventure, or at least one of the first adventures of Strahd, ends with. So I've got all of these cool columns I made in years gone by. These are actually just receipt rolls. These are receipt rolls with 2 wooden discs on either side, and then this is a bottle cap. These are decorative bottle caps because I'm really extra like that. And you can put them down like this, or if you want, you can flip them up so they got the fun detail at the top. So my plan is sort of to use the pillars to sort of outline the edges of the room. And that way I create walls without there really needing to be walls, right? And so we've got sort of the edges of our room here, and then I want to build something here, an altar stone, that I can actually set on the table to raise up this center-ish section here. I was thinking of 4x4 square, but now that I'm seeing it, to make a 4x4 square, I probably have to make it about that big. So yeah, we'll make a 4x4 square with like a 1x2 sort of centered altar stone. Because a guy is, that's 5 feet. It's a 10-foot slab of stone. You can very reasonably set a guy down across 2 squares, but we'll center it just for fun's sake. And I wanted to build that, and I wanted to sort of leave it some space to grow, and for me to use this as sort of the neutral space, right? The whole of Death House and the whole of Curse of Strahd doesn't look like rough-hewn stone, but this is kind of a neutral, dungeony shape, and I like that. And in many ways, this is a similar vein because it's like, like a parchment paper. It's not super crazy. So we're actually going to be pulling out some foam first and foremost, in a slightly different vein than we usually do. But I like 1/2 inch to 1 inch Xps Foam, which is sort of this extruded polystyrene stuff. It's pink generally, where you can get it in the United States. And that's where I am, and that's all that I am, and so I will be using it because that's what I got. Let's actually set aside the Lazy Susan, so I have a little space to work. Just set it down. It's remarkably durable as a piece of terrain. So we'll just set this down here, and I'm going to pull out a square and just literally rip a 4x4 square. I might take some extra thinner foam later to sort of build out the layers, but this thing is going to be the base, the strength of most of it, frankly. So let's doodle this on. I'm going to doodle this in pen because I can, not on the millimeter side. Because I am a filthy American. So, let's say, okay, I've got my right angle here that I'm working off of. And it's important to remember that when we're working at a scale that's this small, the distance between the line and the edge is meaningful. So once we've drawn out our square edge, as it were, we'll actually scoot it onto that edge and mark out the 4-inch line like that. It's about a 1/16 of an inch, which is meaningful at the 1-inch square grid. But this is sort of what we're working with here. Just like that. And just like this, we're going to draw the next line sort of going this way. Again, sort of scoot it back Get the 4-inch mark right there. Am I totally off screen? I totally am. Let's zoom back out a little bit. So I got the 4-inch square here. And then how do I feel about this? Is that feeling pretty square? I'm inclined to say yes. Feels pretty good on the whole. Let's back it off a 1/16 of an inch. Yeah, generally I like that. And just like that, we've got something close enough to a square for our purposes. I'll pull... where is my longer knife? There it is. I'm going to pull my longer knife for this, just because I like having a slightly longer blade to cut through thicker objects. It's just easier for me. Where did I put my sharpening stick? I'm not sure. Huh. What an interesting thing that has befallen me. I'm actually not sure where that is. Oh well, that's alright. This is reasonably sharp since I last used it. I'm going to actually cut it free from the rest of this piece, just because I don't want to have to cut this whole thing out, manipulating the entire piece of foam. So let's grab our cutting board. We'll stick that down. And then my plan here is to cut this as square as possible. It's a big piece of cut stone, and that should sort of inform the whole shape of the thing. So we'll cut this as level with the table as we can. And for stuff like this, where we're cutting really big pieces out, actually I'll do it right here. I do like the fact that this knife that I use here actually locks shut, which is really nice. I actually don't know if I've updated that this is the knife I use in my doobly-doo down below. I should probably do that, just because I think this knife is, in fact, just a lot nicer than the one I used to use, because due to the dragging nature of all these cuts and things, the blade would constantly sort of get hitched and come out. So now I use this guy instead. And I love having the locking feature. Here we go. It's alright I didn't make it all the way through on that cut. Just take another pass and be as clean as possible. It's really the same rules that we use for cosplay EVA foam, just because we're trying to make it the cleanest possible cut on a foam substance, an extruded foam substance, no less. There we go. Look at that. And is it perfectly square on top? Perfectly square enough, I would say. Let's see here. We're going to draw the grid onto here first. And it is going to be a slightly different sort of shape of stone. But I'm okay with that, because those are the kinds of things that sort of delineate this as part of being part of a different room, right? So let's do this. Just because we're working on a small enough square, this is actually more or less the process I use for making all of my grids, because I'm poor and lack other means to do so. I basically go right in, pull those lines, pull those edges all the way around, as good and even as I can. There we go. Yes. Excellent. And then just like that, we're ready to draw the grid itself. So I'll run these lines all the way across, just like this. Doop. And I like using a pen for this. The width of the pen I find is like a ballpoint pen is quite nice. It's very satisfying for these kinds of grids. You can go further. Obviously, the stonework on the actual Lazy Susan itself, the ultimate dungeon terrain, as it were, is etched in with my hot iron, my soldering iron. But I'm okay with that. That just took a lot of time to do. This is something a little different. That's more of like a cavern-esque, an artful cavern-esque look. whereas this is more of a cut stone block look. So I'm okay with a very rudimentary grid. We're just scoring this ever so lightly. Unlike EVA foam, we can't pass a heat gun against this and get those lines to just sort of pop out on us. Instead, we've got to actually etch and then, score and then etch and widen those lines. So it's a slightly different process, although it does echo other cosplay processes, right? And in that way, one hobby sort of informs the other, and I love that. It's really quite pleasant. There we go. Using our chefly knife skills. And I'm actually going to widen these and then do the lines down the sides so that the grid isn't just sitting on top, floating in space for some reason. Here we go. And we see with just a few passes of this pen, we've got a much deeper, much wider line that's very satisfying to set characters down on. You'll see exactly what I mean in just a moment here. I'm going to stick one of these minis back on there, and you'll see really just how fun it is to go, ooh, look, he stands on there. He's a square. Here we go. I'm going to flip that back around. Just like that. And now we've got a grid, and it's reasonably deep. It's very clear, which is what I love about it. And you can set bigger minis on it, and it looks just fine. And even paper minis on a grid like this look really good. And because it's square all around, we can even put larger minis like this crazy xenomorph on there. And it all looks pretty good, and it works with the rest of our terrain. If for some reason I wanted to raise a library in the middle of the room, I could do that. I could even just set these guys back to back and be like, look, these are important books. And there they are. Little terrain like this is really useful, I find. I'm going to take a second. We're going to follow those scored lines we made just a moment ago. We're going to take it down the side. And I love having a long blade for this because I don't have to do a draw cut in the same sense. I'm not drawing the line down so much as I am just rocking the blade into the foam, which is a delight. There we go. Just trying to be as level as possible. Trying to honor the fact that this is stonework, not just a grid. And in fact, I've got some tin foil over here we'll use to apply some stonework texture to this. Now I'm just going to drag this sort of down, finishing out those lines, really separating each of the stones from one another. If we do wind up marking the stones a little bit, it's all right. We're going to be adding a lot more texture to this anyways, so it's just fine. There we go. Yeah, look at that. Then, like I said, we've got some aluminum foil here. I've just sort of balled it up so it's a little crinkly. And I'm going to sort of beat it into the stone here, sort of rotating it around. Don't want any, like, distinct patterns, but we do want the foam to sort of take on a slightly messed up and uneven appearance, even as it remains fairly clear and clean. And those lines don't really change, but the overall texture of the foam really does. This is a great alternative if you don't want to spend all the time, say, doing what I did for the Lazy Susan, where you're gouging in the lines and sort of putting a pattern in there and suggesting stone rather than trying to make a thing look exactly like a stone. It's more artful than that, I would say. And I do enjoy that, and I like the look of it, but I like the look of it more for a piece that I will use a ton rather than this piece that I have a very specific purpose in mind for, right? Like, obviously, this thing isn't just going to be this one altar forever. Hypothetically, I could use it for other things, but I will say it'll make a very good altar, and it'll have a very distinct look to it, even if it can be used for other objects. Thanks, I appreciate that. We've just been chilling out, trying to do some fun craftering. Nearly gotten all the way around the sides of this thing. Don't need to get the bottom, that's okay. I'll probably paint the bottom, but I certainly won't texture the bottom. I think that that's unnecessary. Besides, I don't want to redraw the grid again. And now, as we just sort of make sure that the edges aren't overly pointy, we can say, oh, cool, we've got this really nice, this really strong base. And I could even go so far as to make this its own little room if I really wanted to. You could put pillars around the outside. Now it's a really tight crossroads of a corridor or what have you. Little terrain like this can be really nice. We're going to add a main feature to this, though. I could just make a little rectangle that it, sits on top of this, and I suppose I still might. But we could also just glue a piece on there and sort of carve it into an altar. And I'm a little torn. I'm not sure exactly which one of those options is perhaps better. But I am going to grab a little bit of some slightly thinner foam for us to toy with as well. This is Ready Board. It is essentially the same foam. However, it is used for like children's construction and science projects and whatnot. So this stuff can be nice. I'm just going to lop off a little section here that I can cut some pieces from if I choose to. In fact, I'm thinking about just ripping some edges for this to make sort of a step down. If I cut this off at a very square edge, I could then choose to basically just make a step. Or actually, I could probably take this one bit further. Instead of doing that, I could even glue this down so it was a whole raised edge. But I do kind of like that. Although then this thing might be a little too big. No, instead we should just do like a little edge trim around the sides. To do that, we're just going to rip several pieces of approximately the same thickness. I say approximately because we're not measuring for this. And I do this approximation by simply using each piece as a guide for the next piece. And when we're talking about the width of a box cutting blade, that's not particularly meaningful. It's different when we're talking about the width of a big pen, The best one, I'm gonna disagree. Sometimes the best one is the one that is the easiest to use and to run. And sometimes that means that it's not only not the best looking, but it's the thing you can use again and again. I have in the past made several things that I consider to be set pieces, things that I will never use again. I consider them part of a singular adventure, and I take a lot of joy in those pieces. I use them as mementos. They remind me very strongly of games and people that I have left behind, but still enjoy and laugh at. And that's perhaps overly sentimental, but you do get the sense that, like, this is a very important thing to me. So, let's see here. In the interest of doing this efficiently, I am actually going to pull up my hot glue gun, which is actually not something I do a ton of anymore with cosplay. I found a lot of other glues that sort of work better for me, but for tabletop crafting, hot glue is still king, still incredibly effective, as always. Well, how is everybody tonight? How is everybody's week panning out? It's Thursday evening. We only got Friday left to go. I hope we're all feeling pretty good. There we go. Add that. Let's see. We'll build sort of a step going around it, and then we'll also texture it that same sort of stonework there. And I could even go so far as to build up the step ever so slightly just on these guys. That could be really fun. And wouldn't necessarily prevent it from being a generic piece still. Let's, as we're waiting for that to heat up, why don't we sort of design out our altar? We've got this hunk here that we lopped off from the main piece. It looks pretty nice. I bet if we cut it right there, sort of to size, cut it down, now we're left with a piece that I think could hypothetically just be the stone slab, big stone slab if you want. Just gotta get through the last day. I get it. My week's been pretty good. This is my first full week of work at my new job, so it's been It's been busy. It's been full of learning a lot of things, which is always exciting. But I've had a very pleasant week, I would say. I've met a lot of nice new people. Let's see. Could build sort of a top for this. In fact, I bet if we wanted to, could even go so far as to cut this down ever so slightly. Let's see. Take a bit off of both sides. So now it's not quite the 1-inch grid anymore. In fact, it sort of defies that a little bit by just being of a slightly different size and shape. It's a little more rough hewn, perhaps a little bit more sacrificial. And instead, we can make this piece a little bit more to the scale of those 2 inches, and I can just sort of mark that out with my knife. It doesn't have to be perfectly perfect because we are going to texture it anyways. But now I've got this top that is 2 inches that you could, I don't know, leap on top of, and you could use it. It's still gridded in a sense that it is just 2 inches. What's my job? I work in security technology, so that's about all I got for it. But it is nice, and there's nice people involved. And I'd say that's about all anybody can hope for in a good job, is a company that seems to care, and people that you enjoy being around, including some D&D friends, which is always fun. Okay, let's see here. We've got the top there. I might even cut a little bit off this top as well. There we go. And now, we want to cut a little bit more off. Even this off a little bit more. Now I can glue this guy right on the top there. And we've got a pretty serviceable altar that we can continue to embellish. Here we go. Let's see. What I might do is take a little piece of something heavy and stick it right in the middle here. And that way I don't have to glue these together. I can have this separate piece, but it's also not going to fly away on me accidentally. Okay, looks like the hot glue gun's just about hot. Great. That's exactly what we wanted. So we'll go ahead and we will hot glue these together very quickly. One thing you got to be careful about is melting XPS foam. Definitely melts if you're not careful. And one other thing that can be really tricky, and this is also similarly tricky with EVA foam, is that XPS foam is also an insulator. So it tends to prevent the hot glue from losing heat if you're not careful. So you got this compound problem of like, oh God, my stuff is melting, and also it's not getting much cooler. It's melting it away, and it's staying pretty hot, which is not great. Yeah, Parzival. I definitely believe that the people at my job make it what it is, and it's a good time. I'm enjoying myself, frankly. Let's sort of build this around it. We'll cut off one edge and sort of abut these going around. Here we go. Here comes the next one. Again, just sort of gluing all the way around. Don't need a ton of glue, just enough to get everything to stick down. Ooh, that's not square. There we go, that's better. There we go, trying to keep that as flat as possible so that we've got a nice, even piece of terrain for us to build on. Here we go, we cut flush. And that's how we create a nice square edge on our little stair there. Our stair, our base, whatever we want to call it, frankly. Let's do the next one. No need to wait much for this stuff. We're not using so much glue that it's going to glob and try to you know, come apart at the seams on us. We're really just trying to tack everything in place, knowing that we're going to coat this stuff in a lot of different paint and glue that'll really even everything out. There we go. Just like that, and I can cut away the excess again. Ta-doo! Oh, there we go. Awesome. It's looking really square, and it's looking like it's got just that little bit of detail. Oh my god, yeah, go to bed. What are you doing? Like, I appreciate you coming in, though. Thanks for chilling out. We're just craftering. Last night alone on our way home, you turned and said to me, I love you so, and I wanna know, what do you think about me, about me? Sweet and lovely, that's what you are to me. Sugar and spice and everything nice. You're all I dreamed you'd be. Soon we'll marry, you'll be my blushing bride. I will smile all the while you're by my side. I will smile all the while you're by my side. By my side. There we go. Little dab of hot glue there. We thank you for coming in there, Percival. We really do. Alright, we'll stick that together, gluing everything together as we go. Feeling pretty good about it, honestly. I like that it's actually not very perfect. I kind of screwed up the inner edge there, but I actually think it'll be better in the long run. Okay, so we got the little altar there, we got a little step going around it. That'll be really pleasant. Really quite fun to put in front of the players. I kind of still want to add some more heft to both of these things, and I've been thinking about it. I do have some extra, like, press board here. It's not very thick, but it could be useful for this. I tend to just sort of score this stuff and slap it underneath terrain a little haphazardly. But what happens if we try to give it a very square edge, huh? What happens if I stick this in a machine cut corner and just sort of trace out where the edge cut should be for this, huh? What happens then? I bet I can end up with something really, really nice if I don't also destroy all of my other terrain. Good God. Okay, here we go. We'll just score this and splits with the consequences, huh? Here we go. Really just try and score it as close to that line as we can. I don't have to do a bunch of sanding and trimming, frankly. I'd rather we just kind of get to move on to the next thing. Isn't that what everybody wants? I kid, of course. There is definitely somebody out there on the internet who really all they want is to watch me accidentally cut myself. And so to that end, we cut away from ourselves. off the table and into the board. That's what it's there for. Here we go. Ooh, I'm liking that. Come on. Oh, you can do it. Come on. Come on. Back, I bet. Oh, no. Oh, no. I ripped a huge chunk out of the corner. Oh, man. Okay, well, you know, there are worse things. This could be a lot worse, frankly. Instead, we're gonna... Oh, I don't know. We could just slap this piece in that corner and be pretty well and duly done with it, frankly. Yeah, actually, I think that's exactly what I'm gonna do. We're just gonna lop this little bit off here and stick it back in that corner with some hot glue. Grafting. Okay, here we go. It's just that simple. And in a very real way, this is the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just kind of want it to be vaguely level, to be honest. So that's why we're sticking this corner piece back in there. And I think we've gotten there. I really do. I really do think we're back to where we want it to be with this. And now when I stick this together, gosh, that looks lovely. And it has just a lovely little like when you hit the ground with it. So I'm feeling good about this. Big surfaces attaching together with hot glue is always a little painstaking, but if you do your work right, should wind up with something pretty even, fairly even on the whole, which is the goal when we're talking about stuff like this, you know, just generally fairly even. I can always fill gaps if I need to, but I don't think I will. I don't think I'll need to. Cut all this sort of like very fine edge off. Just trying to even it out a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Ugh. A good sharp blade is always gonna get you a lot further than most tools, to be frank. Look at that. And now it's got some really nice heft to it, which is, you know, what I really wanted in the first place, frankly. Before we move on, I wonder if there aren't any, like, those are still kind of light. I'm looking for, like, like a little metal bead or bearing somewhere in my shop. Something that I can just... Ugh. Something I can just bury in the back of this altar. Call it a day. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing what I'm looking for. Oh, hey. What about a used screw? Betcha that could be great. In fact, if I cut the back end off this, the sharp bit, I bet you I could embed it sort of lengthwise here. Ooh, we're going to get another pair of grips and snap that bad boy instead of attempting to cut it so that I don't kill myself accidentally. There we go. That's perfect. And that's just a little bit of extra weight, just a little bit more. And will, in fact, make all of this a lot easier. We'll cut a little V-groove for where it can sit in there. And there we go. Really bury all the edges in and then encase it in hot glue. And that, dear children, is how we prevent any bad stuff, and also just sort of add that last little bit of weight and meaning to this piece. So we'll just bury it in hot glue in there. And how do we make sure that the bottom's still flat, you ask? Why? How could you even ask? We lick a metal tool and just slap it up against there. Please don't lick your tools, actually. I did it just so that I wouldn't get this hot glue to stick to it. We just flattened that out and also cooled down the very edges of it very quickly. And now we can leave that to sit. Just a little, it's just a screw in there. I feel like this is a great way to try and hide really anything, but like a scavenger hunt item. And I buried it in a thing, and then I encased it in hot glue, and now none shall find it. Really, what is Voldemort even doing with his life? Why isn't he just embedding all of his stuff in hot glue? It's really making it just too easy. Here we go. Yeah, look at that. And now we can do all sorts of little fun things, and this just has some more structure to it, which is great. We can do things like turn these into little steps if we wanted. We could turn them into like half-inch cobbles, actually, if that's what we wanted to do. But I think I'm just going to be a little looser with it. We're going to do like a half in between each of these squares with the pen, and then a square on each corner. And that is how we get our sort of pattern going around the edge of this. And it's not perfectly square or particularly like golden rule in terms of the rectangle size. But I think that's okay. I think we got such perfect altar stones, we get to have a little bit of, again, that artistic license I was talking about earlier. Where suddenly we're building something with character, not just a blank piece of terrain to be used again and again and again and again. Let's see. Look at that. I really like that. I think that's gonna paint up really nicely, just on top of everything about it, frankly. So we can do some similar etching here where we actually score it and then open back up again. There we go. The important thing, arguably, here is just not to mess up the stonework we've already done. Here we go. Almost all the way around here. I know this is clearly the most exciting part of the stream, but also it's building up a layer of detail here that I hadn't initially set out to make, but looks delightful, frankly. Why did I not start all the way on the edge? Why did I start in the middle of an edge? Lord. One thing I'll have to be careful with, and you know, I'll use the foil to help prevent this, is the feeling that all of these lines are like bursting outward from this rather than like deeply entrenched and etched in lines. So we'll just make sure that we don't mess that up. Here we go. go. And that way we've sort of done the brick all the way around there. And then we can take that aluminum foil again and just sort of making sure to hit all of these edges. Really just beat it into the edge. It's all one kind of stone, shall we say. Ugh, going all the way around the edge. There we go. And sort of hitting up the corner itself, beating it back and preventing that weird edge we were talking about earlier. Oops, broke off a little piece. That is okay. That was never meant to be a part that, like, a character would stand on anyways. It's really just to build up the depth. And now this also has a little bit of heft to it. We can set that up there. And you know what? We'll also build some stone texture into the sky here. Because we're gonna paint this up a similar stone at least. But this, maybe we give this even more character as a piece that's not just an up stone. It's also like, it is the altar itself. It's not just a built up piece. So we can go ahead and, oh man, I really want to just make sure that the top is textured to hell and back. Oh, there we go. Here we go. And you know what? We could even go so far as to say add a crack in it. It's old. It's been used, rather horrifyingly so. Let's add just some minor crack and wear to the altar. To run that all the way down, I could even spiderweb this crack out a little bit. Here, let's just boom. Give it a little bit of pop. It's jagged. It has a wend to it that's really quite horrifying. We should feel a little weird about it, frankly. Yeah, I like that. Now it's got that little bit of weight in the bottom where if I drop it, you know, it does try to just set and almost right itself. You can put it here, you can put it there. I can put it off to the side if I really wanted. And that way I can still have this square piece if I ever want to use it for something else, right? This could be out in the wilderness instead of just in a dungeon somewhere. And now, I think what we might do for this, honestly, is sort of set it aside. What I'm actually going to do is just take some of my paint water here, some of my paint water, and some silicone caulk, which is pretty fast drying. And all we're going to do is just gingerly take a little bit of this silicone caulk. It's a paintable caulk, and we're just going to fill this gap around the edge of this, just because I think it will look a little neater filled in. And will it be perfect? No, but I do think it's just another small thing that helps separate something from looking pretty cool to feeling real and hefty, you know? And so we sort of wipe it off the bottom, and that way we go from having this little edge around here to just more of a flat piece. It's one constructed piece. And in some ways I am doing this instead of a lot more sanding. You know, sanding would be one way to help even this out and make everything feel a bit more cohesive. But instead, we shall simply seal this over, and we can also set it aside then. We can end our live stream with maybe just a little bit of painting if we so choose. And that's just a nice way to get to round out your night. Sometimes it's not necessarily about what's faster. Sometimes it's about leaving yourself room to be creative while still creating some very, very beautiful things. Oh, man. You know, I don't need to be struggling with this very low tube. I do have quite a lot more of this. But, you know, sometimes it's about the principle of the thing, right? We curl up the toothpaste because we must. There we go. Love that. Hello? Is that McDonald's? Yeah. Ooh, on-stream McDonald's. This stream is in no way sponsored by McDonald's.
Love you.
Thanks, baby. Ooh, and now we got a Coke. Who knows? Maybe the stream's just beginning. I'm joking, of course. I've been working all day. And this thing will need to dry anyways before we can keep going with it. So I feel pretty good about finding a place to stop here in the next 10 minutes or so. I'm okay with that. Okay, let's I'm just gonna use this, just wipe away a little bit of that excess, and then without using too much water, I am actually just gonna take just the barest bit of water on my fingies here, and use it to smooth this over and make sure there aren't any big lumps or overly intense cracks or anything. Just a ginger sort of smoothing it over, you know? Oh, don't you know? There we go. And just like that, we got this really cool base that I'm going to definitely for sure use in my death house, which I will be running hopefully in the next couple weeks here. We're having a session 0 tonight after this, and I am very excited. Vask.tech. That doesn't seem real. It almost looks like a something I should report. Unless you care to elaborate there, Megan. There we go. Oh, that looks delightful. This is gonna paint up really nice, and it's got some really good heft to it. Oh man, I can't wait. I can't wait to stick this thing on the table. Okay, well, let's set it aside for now, just because we don't really have anywhere else to go with that. We'll set this aside as well. Little altar there. And we unplug our hot glue gun for safety reasons. And let's, I don't know, maybe we just spend a couple minutes trying to lick a couple of the books in the bookshelves a slightly different color, eh? We get just a little bit of one color and we'll while away the last little bits of the stream. Let's see. Surely some of the books must be a slightly more impressive beige green color. Let's perhaps not you that color, but I'll bet a little bit of coaxing from beige, and maybe I pull out just a little bit of like a Mars black. Oh, that's too much. I know in my soul that is too much. Although it is a sufficiently dull color, I'll say that. Maybe we failed upwards here, folks. Maybe we have. I've got an even finer brush here. Don't want it to be super wet. We'll just load up our paint on a brush and get. Let's see how zoomy can we get here. How zoomy is that, eh? We'll just lick out a couple of these books deep in the shelf, and that'll sort of be our victory tonight. No, that's too bright. That is too bright. We gotta darken that puppy down. 'Cause otherwise it's gonna read as just like being overly bright in the room, which is not correct. It is meant to be like a darker green, even if it is a fairly unique color. We gotta do something a little different there. Let's get in there again. Yeah, just grabbing like every 4th, 6th book. Just trying to build up the idea that there are actually individual books in here. They are meaningfully distinct from one another and not just one big pile of book in a shelf. For those of you wondering, this is actually a part of the Mantic Terrain Crates Wizard Study. So if you want to grab one for yourself, I highly recommend it. It's good stuff. Good stuff, especially for the price, frankly. Look at that. And we'll lick out a couple of these books as well on this one as well. Never the same book twice. Just trying to bring our world a little bit more to life. Yeah, it's a happy little book, right? Just a little something to get us that much closer to real. And if we mess up, we can always go back and add a different color paint, right? No wrong answers. Just some creative energy at the end of a long day. Oh man. Yeah, just a little green on that top shelf there. We'll have to go back in with some brown in a little bit. But I'm having fun. Oh, we are nearly out of time though. I think I will take a moment to thank our patrons over on Patreon because they do so much for us and we really appreciate all the love and support we get from those guys. There's going to be some extra templates dropping for them tomorrow, so I'm really excited to see what they think of them. Unknown, Andrew Valente, Gabriel Ancia, Sam the Man, Suit Up Props, Laura, Ruben, Wilson for Matt G, K-Snake, and Austin of AJ Plays Piano. Thank you guys so much for all your help. We really, really do appreciate everything, and it means just the world to us. If you want to support the channel, you can check us out on Patreon, or you can check out our Etsy store where we sell lots of different things. Lots and lots of different things. Honestly, just check it out for yourself. And until we meet again, please, take care.